Hi, this is my 2005 Toyota Sienna. I just put a Class 3 draw-tight hitch on it. So the first thing I did was I had to clean out the rusty welded nuts. They'd been on the car for 12 or 13 years. The first thing I did was I used this tap, which is 10 millimeter M10 by 1.25. Now the bolts that go in there are M12, so this is actually a little bit smaller diameter, but it has the 1.25 metric thread spacing. So I dip this into a little container of PB blaster liquid. There's the can it came from, and rotated it while also rotating my hand because that was in there a little bit loose, and scraped out a bunch of rust off of those welded on nuts. I did that because the bolts would not fit in there on their own. Now after I finished that, I then did a second thing. This is a screw thread cleaner outer. You can see it's got the metric markings on there, M12 by 1.25. Maybe it's called a thread chaser, but it's a kind of like a tap. It's kind of like a tip of a bolt actually, where it's got the carvings, the groove cut in there, 4 grooves as you go around. And as I turn this into the rusty nut hole, or bolt hole actually, it got out a fair amount of gunk, which I then scraped out on the edge of a piece of cardboard, and then repeated the process 3 or 4 times per bolt hole until it went all the way through. Then well, you see there's some grease on there. I think maybe the best thing to put on there would be the anti-seize liquid or paste. However, I didn't have that lying around, and so I guess I used some grease. I do not recommend that, but anti-seize should be acceptable. They use that on cylinder head bolts and they don't come loose, so anti-seize. Alright, so according to other videos, you're supposed to take the rubber muffler mount off of your muffler tailpipe, which I looked at a little bit and it just didn't feel like coming off easily, so I left it on there, and I actually used the muffler tailpipe. I brought before this hitch was attached, I actually hooked that top plate and laid it on top of the muffler. Of course right now it's screwed in. Laid it on top of the muffler, and then went over here to this side and put in my hand tightened 3 bolts. My knee, as I was lying flat, would push up on that to help take the weight off of it. And here's my son's feet, and he helped me do the job. Well, one last thing before I turn off this thing is you see that I use that 3/8 inch ratchet extension piece. Maybe it's a couple inches long, and you see I used it to hold the tailpipe off to the side just enough to allow free or more free access to my 3 bolts. which are including a washer and a lock washer, with the lock washer touching the bolt surface. Well, there you go. It's just a little bit of a summary for... Oh, wear safety glasses when you're down looking up. My boy got some rust in his eye. We had to brake for a little while we... So wear safety glasses to avoid getting junk falling in your eyes. There you go. Your hitch job. Fresh bolts, fresh hitch, 12-year-old car.